I'm Christopher Monckton. I'm here because I've been invited to be here to communicate the results of my academic research into aspects of the climate question.
Now, there's a parallel conference going on a few miles away from here. Is it deliberate that this Heart Institute event is on today?
Well, that would be a matter for the organisers and not for me. But certainly it is noteworthy that they have chosen for their location the private jet airport where the likes of Al Gore, who are telling us we must live like paupers, fly in on their Gulfstream 4 private jets, which guzzle enormous amounts of fuel and emit enormous amounts of the carbon dioxide they tell us is dangerous. Have you asked Al Gore or any of his ilk whether they think that that is appropriate conduct? Or because you agree with the same religion that they believe in, have you not asked them that question?
That's a direct question for myself. Well, I haven't. I've not been able to get up close to Al Gore, but we're just here to reflect what's going on today. But this is likely to be a lower key affair than the COP21 conference. How does that reflect differences in public opinion, perhaps support more for one
Well,
than the other?
the public opinion is now clearly with the questioners rather than the believers in the new superstition. There is a growing feeling that this is something that has been oversold, greatly to the profit of the class that is peddling this particular scare, and every opinion poll now reflects the feeling of the general public that of all the issues that one might worry about, climate change is dead last.
The UK government, if we just go to the UK for a moment, has reversed a lot of green policies recently. Are those good things? The fact that they've ditched various subsidies for investment in solar and wind and the like?
Well, as a Scot and living in the Highlands of Scotland and watching not only the despoliation of the landscape by windmills, but also the gradual extinction of various species of rare birds, one by one, as they are batted out of the sky by these monsters. As an environmentalist myself, I'm very much in favour of stopping all subsidies to any form of wind power. And as for solar power, of course, that is largely irrelevant in Scotland because we don't see the sun very much.
Do you think your views are holding sway in the Treasury more and more? I mean, does Lord Lawson, for example, have a line to George Osborne?
Well, privately, I think George Osborne would, if he were free to do so, raise questions about the desirability of providing any subsidies. After all, under Article 90 of the Treaty of Rome, it is illegal to subsidise one form of electricity generation over another. And particularly when the form of electricity generation being subsidised is between 10 and 100 times the cost of simply burning coal. Does coal do any harm to the environment? These days, no, with fluidised bed construction, with high temperature combustion, with fly ash trapping. The amount of pollution that gets into the air from coal-fired power stations these days, in terms of the enormous amount of electricity you get from it, is negligible. Of course, they emit carbon dioxide, but carbon dioxide really isn't proving a problem. And if one looks at the record, we were told that by now there should have been 3/4 of a Celsius degree of global warming since 1990. That was the central estimate of the IPCC in 1990. The outturn has only proven to be around 1/3 of that. And so this is really rather a severe discrepancy between the predictions on the basis of which this entire process was launched and the far less exciting real-world outturn. And I suppose you could say the difference between that conference and this conference is that conference is living in fairyland and we are living in the real world where we look at the actual facts and the data and not at some sort of theology.
Some might say you're losing the battle. Almost 195 countries are expected to universally sign up to a global warming accord. Do you see it that way?
No. What we see is that the global classe politique is finding this a very congenial way of engendering what is proving to be the largest and most rapid transfer in human history of wealth and power from the poor to the rich. In the end, the poor are not going to stand for it. The opinion polls make this very clear. And, of course, as each new month passes, it's now 18 years and 9 months, according to the RSS satellite data, since when there was last any global warming at all, even though in that same 19-year period there has been something like 1/3 of the entire potential anthropogenic effect on the climate since 1750, eventually those who are serious about this, rather than taking some ideological left-wing or extreme right-wing, I don't know which it is, political line, who look at the actual data are going to say, well, the actual data do not bear out the scare stories that we're being told. And in the end, the actual data is what will prevail here.
Is the Heartland Institute's decision not to publish where it receives its money from problematic?
That's not for me. You must ask the Heartland Institute. I'm merely a guest here.
Sure, but if we skip back just quickly to the UK, they've recently announced a coal phase-out by 2025 on unabated power stations. We also got some of the strongest emissions commitments in the developed world. Are those fundamentally misguided, and will they ever be overturned?
Here's what happens when you deliberately increase the price of electricity. In the last 10 years, the raw material cost of coal and oil and gas have all fallen. Yet the cost of electricity has doubled and in some cases tripled. That means that ordinary working people can't afford to heat their homes. In a recent cold winter, 7,000 of them died, over and above the normal cold winter deaths. This is a policy that kills people, and it's time we stop doing that.
Chris and Monckton, thank you very much.